Joseph, we're here today to celebrate the success of Nationwide Building Society. Just published its underlying profits for the first quarter, up 141% to 253 million. A great vindication of the mutual model of ownership, surely.
Well, we've come to praise Nationwide, but I think we should be burying Co-op Group as well, because that's the shadow across the mutual sector in the UK. In particular, Reverend Paul Flowers, the former chairman of Cooperative Bank. I'm sure you remember when he told MPs his bank had £3 billion in assets. In fact, oh dear, it was £42 billion. And that's the drawback to me of the mutual model, is leadership.
Well, I think that's a little bit unfair. There was a little local difficulty with the Reverend Paul Flowers, the so-called Crystal Methodist, but I think you could make criticisms based on managerial competence far more easily against stockholder-owned banks. If you look what happened during the financial crisis, the implosion of a series of big names such as Lehman's, such as the banks that needed bailing out in the UK like Lloyds and RBS. What we have is a very small number of mutuals left. We have a number of other businesses that have alternative structures like John Lewis's, who are also hugely successful. And they provide tremendous competition against a one-size-fits-all form of capitalism that we see on the main market in the thousands of businesses that are quoted there.
Well, I think you're falling into the fallacy there of comparing mutuals to red-blooded stockholder-owned banks, and therefore makes them look flattering because they are so irrelevant and so small. Whereas I would look at Nationwide, for example, which is a fairly boring deposit-funded mortgage lender for the most part, and yet its CEO, Graham Bill, was paid about £2.2 million. Now, I grant you, that's not £10 million paid to the chief executive of Lloyds Bank, for example, but that still seems quite a lot. And Nationwide supposedly operates on this principle of one member, one vote, but I doubt how many members are actually closely monitoring Mr. Bill's performance or off the board.
Well, I don't know. Looking at these results, I'm sure that a lot of members would say that he's worth every penny. As you say, bank bosses of stockholder-owned banks generally are paid tens of millions a year. And also the net interest margin's pretty low. I think it's 1.4% v 2.5% for a stockholder-owned bank. That's because they're giving money back to people all the time through their margins.
Yes, I mean, when we begin talking about sending money back, we have to talk about capital, because one of the really massive drawbacks of mutuals in this modern day and age is, can they actually absorb losses on that capital if they can't raise public equity? Well,
I can see that problem, but for the moment their core Tier 1 ratio is, I think, 16%. That compares with Lloyds, which is best of class in the quoted high street banks, to I think about 11.1%. But what I think we might agree on is that Nationwide really shoots the light out in producing results that only run to 3 pages. You don't have appendices, you don't have 5 different sections, and you can get through it in 2 minutes.
Having read a 500-page HSBC report before, I agree with you on that.
Good. Thanks very much.